Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 20th of August and we are going to deal with two very important topics which are in news. First is the small satellite launch vehicle. This has been tested by ISRO in its third flight and now it is available for commercial, I would say, production. This small satellite launch vehicle will launch the small satellites in the low Earth orbit. Earlier, small satellites had to wait for bigger satellites to get launched and thereby their launches got delayed. But this launch vehicle will only carry small satellites up to 500 kgs and launch them in the low Earth orbits. Next is lateral entry into the civil services. The government issued a notification and asked UPSC to conduct lateral entry screening for 45 individuals to be placed in 24 ministries of the country. Lateral entry is basically an entry of a person into the government services without clearing an examination, that is UPSC civil services examination or any such like, and they are entered based on their expertise in a particular domain. This was criticized by the opposition parties on the grounds that it is not taking into account the reservation because all these seats were unreserved. However, the government has recalled back its move to give entry to the lateral entrance via this route. Now, let's get started. First, the small satellite launch vehicle. Now, earlier what used to happen, there multiple small satellites have to be launched. Small satellites means those satellites which are weighing less. And in whichever orbit they have to be launched, they had to wait for the larger satellites to be scheduled and then, they used to be launched along with those larger satellites. In this due process, their launches got delayed. And this definitely impacted business and other purposes for which those were made. Now, ISRO has developed this functional capabilities of launching small satellites into the low Earth orbits. How we've come to know? We've come to know by this third launch, which was done by ISRO, successfully launched the third developmental flight of small satellite launch vehicle from the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. It marks completion of ISRO or Department of Space SSLV development project, and New Space India Limited NSIL, basically it is ISRO's commercial arm, has been ordered to now produce SSLVs for commercial missions. So now basically there will be SSLVs launching small satellites. They will not have to wait. Now, about this small satellite launch vehicle, about SSLV, what is SSLV? It is a rocket that is designed to orbit satellites weighing less than 500 kg. That is what is making them small in low Earth orbit and 300 kg to sun synchronous orbit. So, a lesser weight can be launched in a higher orbit, which is called as the sun synchronous orbit. Sun synchronous orbits are those orbits which, in which if a satellite is orbiting, it will pass through a particular position on Earth at a particular time period in a day. And that time period will be same for that particular location every day. That is a sun synchronous orbit. So 300 kgs to sun synchronous orbits, 500 kgs to low Earth orbits. It is a three-stage launch vehicle configured with three solid propulsion stages. All the three stages are solid stages. There is no liquid stage. Liquid stages are required for in those launch vehicles which have to travel a lot. Means the geostationary orbits and all, which are 36,000 kilometers apart. These are only 500 to 1,000 kilometers apart. Okay. But there is this propulsion based velocity trimming module which is liquid in nature. It is in the terminal stage. If velocity has to be reduced, it is used for that purpose. Now, key features of this SSLV. It is the smallest vehicle, 110-ton mass at ISRO. There are other launch vehicles also like PSLV, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicles. Then we have GSLV, MK3 Mark 3, Geosynchronous Launch Vehicle. This is also known as Launch Vehicle Mark 3, LVM3. So, used for launching the satellites in geosynchronous or geostationary orbits, launched for used for launching satellites in the polar orbits like this. Now SSLV launched for used for launching small satellites weighing less than 500 kgs in the low Earth orbit. It will take only 72 hours to integrate, unlike 70 days taken for a launch vehicle. So this is time is reduced. Only 6 people will be required to do the job instead of 60 people in case of PSLV or GSLV. So that is something which is substantially important. Other features include flexibility in accommodating multiple satellites, launch on demand feasibility, minimal launch infrastructure requirements, etc. And this actually makes this SSLV more, I would say, useful, more flexible, and more efficient as well. Most importantly, the small satellites will not have to wait for getting launched. The significance of SSLV: seamless launch of small satellites, that is going to happen. The launch of small satellites has until now been dependent upon piggyback rides with big satellite launches for ISRO's PSLV. This will stop because we have a dedicated launch vehicle for small satellites now. SSLV is intended to cater to a market for the launch of small satellites into low Earth orbits with a quick turnaround time, because time required for assembling a launch vehicle, small satellite launch vehicle, is less. Minimal infrastructure is required for launching it. Less number of people are required. So this turnaround time is less, and this can make more and more launches possible. Suited for launching multiple micro satellites and supports multiple orbital drop-offs. So if this SSLV is going, a satellite has to be dropped in this orbit, it can drop off. It goes above, satellite has to be dropped there, it can drop it there. So it is like this. The multiple drop-offs are possible. The SSLV is likely to cost a fourth of the current PSLV. This is basically adding a feather into the cap of already into the cap of ISRO, which is already known for launching low cost projects. So SSLV is another feather. Shift the burden of commercial launches from PSLV. The PSLV's load is distributed now. SSLV is there dedicatedly for small satellites and all. So this is the significance of SSLV, which is very much important and has to be understood. Now comes the second topic, that is lateral entry. Lateral entry, as the name suggests, you are entering late into the services. By the government, this entry is enabled. Do you have to give any exam? No exam as such, but yes, you need to have certain level of experience. You need to have, that experience, and you should be known about that experience. Obviously, government will be testing you. Government will not close its eyes and take you just like that. There'll be proper interview and all will be conducted for this lateral entry as well. Now, why this is the news? Because UPSC on Saturday issued an advertisement seeking applications for talented and motivated Indian nationals for lateral recruitment to the post of Joint Secretary, Director and Deputy Secretary in 24 ministries of the Union government. So for these three posts, Joint Secretary, Director and Deputy Secretary. What are these posts? What is the hierarchy? We will see. Okay. But yes, lateral entry, no exam you have to give. You don't have to undergo that proper hierarchical format. Years of service you don't have to spend. You just get entry at the senior level or mid senior level on the basis of your, I would say, qualifications, on the basis of the work you have done, on the basis of your expertise, to be very, I would say, crisp and short. But this lateral entry, I would say, announcement by the government has faced certain criticisms, like Congress Party Chief Mallikarjun Kharge and Bahujan Samaj Party Supremo Mayawati and Samajwadi Party's Akhilesh Yadav. They have criticized this particular policy for not having reservations for SC, ST and OBCs. It seems like, reservation is a very, I would say, obsessive topic for the opposition parties. And, they have criticized this, and the government has recalled back this today. So that is a bit unfortunate, but yes, whatever it is, fortunate or unfortunate, let's see how the government brings it again. How many posts and who can apply in this particular way? Total 45 posts were there. Individuals having appropriate qualifications and experience from state UT governments, they may be working in the state governments, they can apply. They're working in the PSUs, they can apply. Statutory organizations, research institutes and universities, and even the private sector, they are eligible to apply. With every post, there were this criteria that if you have covered this thing, or if you are qualified for this thing, you can apply. The advertisement mentions that all posts are suitable for candidates belonging to category of persons with benchmark disabilities. It did not give reservation to PWDs as well. But It said that they are suitable, means these people can also apply. It depended upon the government whether to give priority to them or not, but explicitly there was no mention about reserving certain seats for them. Now, who are the lateral entrants? So, in 2017, Niti Aayog said or published this 3-year action agenda and the sectoral group of secretaries on governance in its report submitted in February. They said that the induction of personnel at middle and senior management level in the central government can be done. These lateral entrants would be part of the central secretariat, which till then had only career bureaucrats from all India services. Career bureaucrats are those people who have risen up the hierarchy, cleared the IAS, IPS examination, UPSC civil services examination, and then started their postings as SDMs, then DMs, then they graduated above, and then they went on to occupy that post of director, then joint secretary, additional secretary, then finally secretary. Those are known as career bureaucrats. But these are lateral entrants. Those are given entry at the mid or senior levels. Okay. Positions open for lateral entry. Basically, there are multiple positions open for lateral entry, like joint secretary. So, secretary level is not open for lateral entry. This is the highest position. Okay. Career bureaucrats will only be here. Additional secretary is also not open for lateral entry. This is the second highest position. Joint secretary, director and deputy secretary. These are open for lateral entry in this advertisement which has been issued by UPSC. And out of them, joint secretary the highest, director and deputy secretary the lowest. For these three positions, lateral entry was allowed. From joint secretary level, decision making starts actually. And for joint secretary level also, lateral entry was being introduced. So this is how the hierarchy goes. Why lateral entry was introduced? Basically, there was need for some specialized knowledge. Like let's suppose this Aadhaar, when it had to be implemented, Nandan Nilankani, who was one of the founding members of Infosys, was called upon. Can be considered as an example in lateral entry because he had that specialized knowledge about digital infrastructure and all. Then second reason, it can be instrumental in filling the gap as well. Means there might be vacancies at the mid or senior level, and those vacancies can be filled up by lateral entry. That definitely will contribute in having manpower. Then bringing a change in work culture. It can bring a change in work culture. Let's suppose lateral entrants coming from different walks of life. Let's suppose army, they've served in the army, or they're coming from a private sector where the good good working culture was there, or more efficient working culture was there. So that can be brought in those government departments where they are joining as lateral entrants. Then lateral entry helps in bringing the values of economy, efficiency and effectiveness in the government sector, which is very much needed in nowadays. And it can also promote participatory governance because those people who might be coming to the services as lateral entrants might be following this practice of participatory governance in their respective ex organizations. But there have been some criticisms of lateral entry as well. First criticism is why need to bring in lateral entrants and keep them on government payrolls? You can outsource the expertise. There are multiple ways in which if you want the expertise, you can outsource it. Outsource it. Like let's suppose if the government wanted expertise of Nandan Nilankani for creating Aadhaar, it could have been outsourced to Infosys, and Infosys could have done that job. Why to bring Nandan Nilankani on the government payroll? It might be like this, understood like this. Cumbersome decision making process. Now, the success of lateral entry requires an understanding of the system and ability to work with the permanent civil servants, which have been, which are known as career bureaucrats. And the system is quite complex. It is not, it might not seem so easy like your previous organization was. So, you need to understand those cumbersome processes and it takes time. And, this will they're not aware about the system. I would say loopholes or system के दाव पेच नहीं पता है. It can be understood in this way. Then profit motive versus public service. So let's suppose if a person has come from private sector, so that person has been oriented in such a way that profit is the only motive, but here public service is the motive. So that kind of conflict arises or can be there. Then there can be conflict of interest as well. That person who's a lateral entrant might not be looking to benefit his ex organization from the government. That can also be there. And it is out of the ambit of reservation. This is something which is to be understood, because on this ground only it is being criticized as of now. Why have the lateral entries been kept out of the ambit of reservation? See, this is very interesting. Reservation in public jobs basically and universities are implemented via this 13-point roster. These I'm talking about the government jobs and all. According to this policy, a candidate's position on a roster of openings is determined by dividing the quota percentage of their groups: SC, ST, OBC, and now EWS. Now, for example, you will understand this by an example. OBC's quota is 27%. So, therefore, OBC candidates are recruited for every fourth post for which vacancy arises in the department. 100 by 27 is equal to 3.7. So, every fourth post goes to the OBC. Likewise, SC candidates with 15% reservation are supposed to fill every seventh vacancy. 100 by 15 is 6.66. So, every seventh vacancy is filled by SC. ST candidates with 7.5% reservation, which means every 14th vacancy is filled by an ST candidate. And EWS candidate with 10% reservation is supposed to fill every 10th vacancy. 100 by 10 is 10. Likewise, it works. But what if there are vacancies which are less than 3 or less than 4? Like every fourth position goes to the OBC. What if it is less than 4? If there is only one vacancy or there is only two vacancy, reservation does not apply. This 13-point roster does not apply over there. And that has happened in this case as well. Now, according to this formula, there is no reservation for up to 3 vacancies. If there are 4 vacancies, then out of 4, one will go to the OBCs. In a single post cadre, reservation does not apply. Since each post to be filled under this scheme, lateral entry, is a single post, reservation is not applicable as per the reply sought by Indian Express in an RTI application filed in DOPT. Now, the current scenario, 45 posts were rolled out. These 45, you might see here, it is more than 10, it is more than I would say 40, so reservation should apply to it. But when we see these 45 postings department wise, these postings are one or two in the department, in each department. That is why reservation was not applicable to it, and that is why it was being criticized by the opposition parties. And it doesn't matter now because it has been called back by the government today. So now let us discuss the MCQs. Consider the following statements and mark the correct one. First, small satellite launch vehicles have been indigenously developed by ISRO. You have to mark whether this is correct or not. SSLV can launch satellites up to 500 kgs to geosynchronous orbit. Only one, only two. Both one and two, neither one nor two. Which of the following can be considered as advantages of SSLV? Less time to assemble, less manpower is required, minimal launch infrastructure is required. Only one and two, only three, only one and three, all of the above. Consider the following statements and mark the correct one. Lateral entry can bring in expertise. Lateral entry can also impact the word culture. Only one, only two, both one and two, neither one nor two. Fourth question, which of the following statements with respect to lateral entry are true? Reservation is not applicable in single seat openings via lateral entry. Recruitment of lateral entrants is done by UPSC. Last question, arrange these posts from top to bottom of hierarchy in the central government. Additional secretary, deputy secretary, joint secretary, director. So you have to find the correct sequence. So let's suppose if additional secretary as the top, deputy secretary at second, joint secretary at third, and director at the fourth. So if you think that this is the correct option, so 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to be the option. Now MCQs of Saturday. Consider the following points about India Out campaign and mark the correct ones. It was a campaign run by the opposition parties in Maldives from 2018 to 2023. This statement is correct. Mohammad Muizu and all, they were in opposition at that time and they ran this campaign. It targeted over dependence on India. Yes, this statement is also true. So C is going to be the correct answer for this particular question. Second, the Great Malay Connectivity Project connects Malay to which of the following islands? Willingili, Thilafushi are correct. Uthuru Thilafalu is not correct. So only 1 and 2 are going to be the correct option, means option number B. Third, currently which country is impacted by the Mpox virus the most? We covered it very explicitly and this question was very easy. Democratic Republic of Congo is the correct answer for this. And last question, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. Mpox is a viral disease. Yes, it is a viral disease. Headache and joint ache both are symptoms of Mpox virus. We covered the list of symptoms as well of Mpox virus. So both the statements are correct. Both 1 and 2 is the right option. And with this, we've come to an end of today's section, and we will be meeting tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Not repeating it today. Namaste. Jai Hind.